Muse had a lot of like game changer moments, I believe. And I think this is one of those things where I felt that Black Holes and Revelations was like their game changer moment, but that's because I was experiencing Muse in England. Whereas I came to America and like that was part of why we became friends, was like, what? Where are the Muse posters? Like, is Muse not like the biggest band in the world? And like to you and I, like they were. And it wasn't until the album that came after this where it was that felt like that in America. But the album that did that in England was definitely Black Holes and Revelations, by
100%.
far.
And to me, this is songs on here I listen to on repeat, like growing up.
So does the radio.
Yeah, and so does the radio. But songs that not even on the radio that I would listen to a lot. I would sit on the computer playing random shit from the dawn of like online play and stuff of video games. This is right when the Xbox 360 came out, and I remember playing Halo 3 when it was out. Right when it was out, and I remember listening to like Assassin, Exo-Politics, Hoodoo, Knights of Sidonia, a shit ton.
Oh yeah, these are on my
online games. Yeah,
these are on my Pandora playlist while I was playing Killzone 3 on my new PlayStation 3.
There you go. But I remember I had to download that shit on a CD onto my Xbox, and it was a pain in the ass to do it. But I just really wanted to listen to it while I was playing games, and I was super stoked when I finally got it to work.
Yeah. The ideas behind Black Holes and Revelations, this was definitely Muse's most like conceptiest record ever. It cements Muse as like, okay, we're really doing this. It's about dystopia. You look at the album cover, and I think it's really hard to tell.
Cool.
It's probably my favorite Muse album cover because it looks
one
like
of my favorite album covers of all time.
Yeah, honestly, like it's just so hard. There's like having like the Last Supper, so to speak, like on the red planet, like on Mars. And yeah,
on Mars, it looks like Mars's Grand Canyon. Yeah, it's really cool.
It is a very themed with outer space, like people kind of abandoning Earth to go to something else. It has a lot of themes with political strife and turmoil leading into that, and this is an Iraq war record. This is a record that comes out of the context of a lot of geopolitical strife where America and England were leading a lot of that, and they were a very vocal part of the population. Not as vocal as they were, 2003, 2004, but by 05 or 06, a lot of people were like, this war is dumb and we don't want it to be going on. And so Black Holes and Revelations came at a great time. It was the right kind of Muse mix of hitting you over the head with politics, but I think it was just hit the moment at the right time. To get into this bastard, like Take a Bow is still a song they will sometimes close to when they perform live. And I think it's just an amazing sort of like
beautiful song
build up. Starlight. It's one of those songs where it's produced in such like a key that's it's unusually like major and kind of unusual for a band like Muse to do. And so it's a little bit, I don't know, it always evokes a reaction to me, similar to El Mañana on Demon Days, where it's sort of like very emotionally happy and full of a lot of joy, even though it has like it has a juxtaposition. Like one of the biggest lyrics is in Starlight is "No one cares if you live or die," but it's this like happy kind of joyous song, and that contrast, that melancholy, like we all know, Dan loves that shit. When you take a pop record that's very happy and make it about like dark political turmoil.
Yep, it's just beautiful, beautiful track. I had that on repeat as a kid. Love listening to it a lot. I really like how the keyboard sounded on it too, where it was, I don't know what effect they're using on it, but it sounds like it's getting hit like 4 times in a row when you're hitting it. Like the way it's layered when you really listen to it closely. I remember listening to that, like growing up, having it on my headphones. It's like, how did they make that sound like that? Like what layering did they do with it to give it that effect? It's very, very subtle. But if you listen to it closely, you can hear that aspect. And it's something there I'm like, what exactly is it doing? And it's one of those songs that opened up my curiosity of music production. It was one of the early things of how was this made. Usually I would just listen to a track and like it. But this is one of those where I remember distinctly looking up on the internet and everything and seeing how did they make this. I can never really find an answer. But now, like, 16 years later or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I understand how it's done. Like, okay, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful track. Right after that, Supermassive Black Hole, a track, and I think this is the track that you and I actually got along with Supermassive Black Hole. I was listening to this. I remember you saying, "Oh, I like Muse," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Nice to meet you."
Good man. How do you do?
Exactly. How do you do?
Yeah, because like we have a very storied first day of friendship, and so
Oh yeah.
from there, there's nowhere to go but up. And so we eventually found out that Muse was a thing, and no, that was great. Muse was also like one of those songs I was happy to hear played constantly on American radio.
Yes.
At one point,
Yeah.
I distinctly remember field trips in high school where Supermassive Black Hole was like playing on the radio, and like everyone knew all the lyrics to it and was like belting all the different shit, and like
I remember singing that. Yeah.
we were in a particularly like artsy musician type of corner of the school, and so we had people doing like different parts of the songs. Like
Forgot about that.
my favorite part is the backing vocals in this, actually. Like, of course I love the bass, of course I love the
Take my
wailing and the
soul
singing,
alive.
but the wishes melting in the dead of night, I love that part. It's a really good just blending of everything, and it's just a well executed song because this is meant to be a rock alternative banger. Your song 2 or your song 3 on an album, like Muse did here, song 2 and song 3, check, are your singles. They're your heavy hitting things. They need to convince everyone to listen to the rest of the album. If they weren't sold on Take a Bow, which would sell a lot of people, like even though it's not like, well, of course, with Muse has like sold me already. Starlight would sell you. Supermassive Black Hole would like triple deluxe, like lock you to the bed, like you're good.
Yeah, it's just one of the best alternative rock records ever made.
Period. Like full stop.
Period. It's just,
and Muse has like a good 4 or 5 under their belt too.
They really do. And it's like, to me, this is the epitome of what you could do as a 3-piece group that have so many ideas, make it cohesive, make it political without being like way too out there, like craziness, to where it can still have that mainstream radio play, but it still sounds fresh. It still sounds modern and new. Even when like looking back onto this record, it's like, dude, I could listen to this every day and be happy.
Oh yeah. This is one of those desert island, you only pick one kind of albums, and like you could do some good work with this.
You really could.
Yeah. Probably not a lot of sleeping, but still is some good work here. And so I will also say one thing just to counter a point to underline a point we always make on Audioface. This was the first Muse record that had no deadline. This is the first Muse record where they like specifically said, we're not making any distractions. We're actually going to take an active role in the production and the technology aspects of things. And we're going to carefully and methodically craft our record so that it is the best representation of the art we want to put out there. That's how you do it.
Fucking did it.
Results. It gets results.
Use this as the Audioface 16 years before Audioface is, or 10 years before Audioface is made.
That's a fact. Alex Jones voice. But yeah, throughout the middle of the record, really like the middle of the record, because of like the bangers and Starlight and Supermassive Black Hole, the middle of the record's often looked over, but you have some really like great Muse deep cuts here that I really love. Like Map of the Problematique is, of course, after that. Exo-Politics is one of my favorites. Save Delusion is great in there. Hoodoo, my favorite map in Team Fortress 2. And Knights of Sidonia as well.
Knights of Sidonia is such a cool track because it's a 2-part track.
Yeah.
I love 2-part tracks.
Knights of Sidonia, you really start to get like, this is another direction Muse goes into of just taking their orchestral alternative rock to like brand new heights of grandeur, so to speak. Like this is just like grand, big, it fills a room kind of production that is extremely thoughtful. The Knights of Sidonia is meant to invoke the idea of the 4th horseman of the apocalypse and like the idea of the invincible, and the fact that it's kind of coming at the end of an album called Black Holes and Revelations, signifying all of this chaos that's happening coming to like a vacuumed out like end. Very thoughtful. And again, this is what I'm telling you, Muse is getting really thoughtful with how they lay out their records and the story that they're telling and the concepts they are. I love concept records. It's one of my favorite concept records of all time. It's one of my favorite alternative records of all time. If we, invent more hours in the day or months in the year and we get around to doing 50 of the thousands, this was definitely going to be on that list.
50 of the thousands. Lord help me.
That would be the hardest list of all time, man.
I gotta deal with like Otts Bjork. Shit, dude. That's not fair.
That top 10 would probably cause the first argument we've had in like 15 years.
I think it
legit
really
argument.
would. Like we'd have to arm wrestle on some of like we have to rock paper scissors for like the top 3.
Turkish oil wrestling.
Coleslaw wrestling.
Cenk Uygur versus Dr. Oz. 3 rounds. Scrimmage.
Due to the conditions of my parole, the number 1 record is